His pen has been uncapped for 40 minutes. That's not a metaphor. It's not a statement, it's just a fact. Sitting on the fold-out desk in the back row of a 200-seat lecture hall at 10:15 on a Tuesday morning, a blue ballpoint, uncapped, resting exactly where he set it down at the top of the hour when the professor pulled up the first slide and Michael still had some version of a plan. The cap is next to his left hand. The notebook is open to a page that says nothing, and the distance between those two things, the pen and the intention, is 40 minutes wide now and growing. He hasn't moved, not in any way that counts. His posture shifted once around the 12-minute mark. His eyes have been tracking something, not the slides, not the professor, more like the room itself, the whole mechanical organism of it. 200 people performing the act of learning in real time. And Michael, in the back row, seat 14 of 16, doing something else entirely. Something that looks like sitting in a lecture, but is actually closer to watching a nature documentary about a species he used to belong to. The girl in the second row has a system, 4 highlighters. She switches between them without looking. Pink for definitions, yellow for dates, green for something he can't figure out, blue for he doesn't know. But she hasn't hesitated once, not once in 40 minutes. Her hand moves from notebook to highlighter to notebook like a circuit that was closed before she sat down. A guy 3 seats diagonal from him is mouthing the professor's words a half second after they come through the speakers, not writing them, mouthing them, like he's rehearsing someone else's thoughts to make sure they stick. Someone in the middle section, he can't see the face, just the glow, is already on slide 47 of a deck Michael hasn't opened, hasn't downloaded, hasn't even checked to see if it was posted. And the laptops, God, the laptops. Every row, every seat, this quiet, constant percussion of keys. Not frantic, not aggressive, just ongoing. The sound of people who know what the next sentence is supposed to be, who opened a document at 10:01 and started filling it because that's what you do. That's the agreement. You show up, you sit down, you participate in the mechanism. Michael's laptop is in his bag. His bag is on the floor between his feet, zipped shut. His notebook is open to a blank page. His pen is uncapped. And the weird thing? The thing he keeps circling back to instead of whatever the professor is saying about quarterly frameworks or regression models or whatever this is, the weird thing is, he's not angry about it. He's not sad. He's not anxious. He's fascinated in a way that feels cold, clinical, like he's watching a machine he used to be part of. All the gears still turning, the output still printing, the whole thing running clean and smooth, and his gear just isn't in it anymore. Not broken, not removed, just never engaged this morning. And nobody in the machine noticed, because machines don't notice missing teeth until something jams. Nothing has jammed. The professor clears his throat into the microphone, and the sound bounces off the back wall directly into the space above Michael's head. 41 minutes now. The professor changes slides. The new one has a red header. Michael can see that much from the back row, and the word milestone in a font large enough to read from orbit. 6 days. That's what he says. The mid-semester project milestone. 6 days from today. He lists what's expected. Deliverables, format, submission portal, group coordination deadlines, and his voice has that particular tone professors use when they know half the room hasn't started and they want to pretend it's still manageable. Firm but reasonable, parentally disappointed but professionally neutral. And the room moves. Not one person, not a few, the room, all of it, at the same time. It's a wave. It starts in the front rows, laptops tilting, fingers hitting keys harder, a sudden shift from passive transcription to active planning. It moves backward through the middle section, phones coming out, but not the doom scroll phones, the productive phones. Texting teammates, opening calendars. Someone 2 rows ahead has a shared Google Doc open, and Michael can see 3 other cursors appear in it within seconds, each one a different color, each one already typing. A girl to his left, he doesn't know her name, has never spoken to her. She's been sitting in that seat all semester, pulls out her phone, sends a voice memo to someone, and puts it back in her jacket in one motion. 7 seconds, the whole interaction. A human being reaching out to another human being for coordination, and it took 7 seconds and 0 hesitation. The guy diagonal from him stops mouthing words and starts a text thread. Michael can't read it, but he can see the bubble pattern. Short message, immediate reply, short message, immediate reply. A rhythm. A back and forth with someone who was apparently just waiting to be contacted. Ready to go. 200 people, and every single one of them has a next step, a person to text, a tab to open, a file to locate. The announcement hit the room like a starting gun, and the entire organism leaned forward, together, in the same direction, running the same race. Michael reaches down, unzips his bag, pulls out his laptop, opens it. The screen wakes up to a blank document. He'd opened it before class, probably out of some muscle memory, some leftover impulse from a version of himself who still did this automatically. It's empty, just a cursor blinking in the top left corner of a white field. Patient, totally indifferent to whether he types or not. He stares at it. The cursor blinks. The keyboards around him keep clicking. He stares at it for a long time, not thinking about the project, not thinking about the milestone, thinking about the cursor, about how it just keeps going. On, off, on, off. This tiny black line appearing and disappearing at a constant rate, completely unaffected by the fact that nothing is coming. It'll do this forever. It'll blink on an empty page until the battery dies and never once adjust its rhythm. He closes the laptop, slowly, the way you close a book you were never reading, and opens his phone instead. The group chat is right where he left it. Third from the top, muted, the little bell icon crossed out. He did that 3 weeks ago, maybe 4. The number next to it says 200 plus. 200 messages he hasn't read. Conversations that happened in a space with his name in the header and his presence nowhere in the text. He scrolls. Past the memes he didn't react to, past the logistics he didn't weigh in on, past a thread about switching meeting times that got 7 replies in 4 minutes. 4 minutes. Like the response time itself was part of the agreement. Like being available was just something they all understood without saying it. And then he finds it. The thread. Last Wednesday, 8:47 p.m. David, a guy he's known since high school, typed, "Study sesh tomorrow, 3 p.m., library 2nd floor. Who's in?" 2 classmates responded within minutes. One said she'd bring her notes from last week. The other asked if they should book a group room. And then, 9:03 p.m., one of them typed his name. Just his name with a question mark. Michael? David replied 16 minutes later. He's prob busy. And the thread moved on. That was it. That was the entire archaeology of his absence. One question mark, one assumption. And then the conversation continued. The session was planned, the room was booked, the notes were shared, and Michael existed in that chat the way a profile picture exists. Technically present, functionally decorative. He reads the thread again. Michael? He's prob busy. Again. Michael? He's prob busy. He refreshes the chat, pulls down, releases, watches the little loading spinner appear and vanish. Nothing new. He does it again. And again. 4 times total. 4 separate times he drags the screen down like the next refresh might shake something loose. Some message that was always there but hiding. Some follow-up he missed. Something that says, "Hey, we saved you a seat." Or, "Knocked on your door but you weren't home." Or even just his name again. One more time with one more question mark. Nothing. Because there's nothing to load. The story is complete. It ended 3 weeks ago in 4 messages in the absence of a 5th, and no amount of pulling down on a screen is going to rewrite it. He puts the phone face down on the fold-out desk, gently, the way you set down something that's heavier than it looks. The professor is still talking. The keyboards are still clicking. The 200-seat lecture hall is doing exactly what it was designed to do, holding people in place while they participate in something together. And Michael is sitting in the back row with a closed laptop, a capless pen, a blank notebook, and a phone turned face down, holding something he hasn't said yet. Something that's been living rent-free in a part of his mind he keeps pretending he doesn't visit. He can feel it sitting right behind his teeth, the shape of it, the ugly contour. He's not ready to say it, but the lecture has 40 minutes left, and the silence in the back row is getting very, very specific. The phone is face down, but the screen is still on. He can see the glow leaking from the edges, pressing against the desk like something trying to get out, or trying to get him to flip it back over. One more refresh, one more look, just to make sure. He doesn't flip it, not yet. Instead, he does something worse. He starts building a case. It's easy, that's the thing. The case builds itself. It practically writes its own closing argument right there in the back row while the professor talks about something that might be important, and Michael talks to himself about something that definitely isn't, but feels like the only thing in the world. They could have followed up. That's where it starts. That's the foundation. Simple, clean, almost reasonable. David, the guy who's known him since high school, who has his number memorized, who walked right past him on the campus quad yesterday morning, could have said something. Not even a phone call, just a sentence. In a text, over nothing. Hey, missed you yesterday. 3 words, 4 if you count the hey. The lowest possible bar for human acknowledgement, and the guy couldn't clear it. And the 2 classmates, they had his number. They were in the chat. They knew the session was happening, and they knew he wasn't there, and they knew, they had to know, that the gap between he's prob busy and the truth was wide enough to drive something through. But they didn't probe, didn't push, didn't do anything except accept the most convenient explanation and keep moving because that's what's easy, that's what costs nothing. Assume he's busy, assume he's fine, assume someone else will check. Nobody checked. And Michael sits with that, the nobody, and turns it over in his hands like a coin he keeps flipping, hoping it'll land on a side that doesn't exist. He plays it back, the question mark after his name, the 16-minute gap, the assumption, the pivot. He maps it out like a crime scene. Here is where they could have reached out. Here is where the door was open. Here is where they chose to walk past it. See? See how clean it is? How airtight? When you lay it out like that, it's practically a proof. A mathematical certainty that Michael was right to expect nothing, because nothing is exactly what arrived, right on schedule, wearing the same face it always wears. And he's good at this. God, he's good at this. The prosecution, the summation, the cold, clinical dismantling of other people's behavior until it confirms the thing he already decided before any of it happened. He could do this professionally. He could charge by the hour, sit in the back row of any room and explain with devastating precision exactly how every person in his life has failed to meet a standard he never told them existed. But there's a crack in it. There's always a crack in it. And he keeps walking past it the way you keep walking past a stain on your ceiling, looking at everything around it, above it, below it, training your eyes to skip the one spot that matters. But today, the lecture is too long, and the keyboards are too loud, and the blank notebook is too blank, and the crack is right there. He saw the invite. That's the crack. That's the whole thing. 3 weeks ago, 8:47 p.m. on a Wednesday, his phone buzzed in his hand. Not in his pocket, not across the room, in his hand, and the message was right there on the screen, and he read it in real time, every word. The study session, the time, the place, the casual open-door energy of who's in, which is the lowest friction invitation a human being can issue. No pressure, no obligation, no commitment beyond showing up. And he felt nothing. Not dread, not resistance, not the complicated tangle of wanting to go and being afraid to go. He keeps wishing it was that, wishing he could point to some knot inside him and say, "That's why I couldn't do it. That's what stopped me." But the truth is flatter than that, emptier. He read the message and it registered the way weather registers. Information, data, a thing that was happening somewhere near him, but not to him. And instead of typing, "Yeah, I'm down," 4 words, 2 seconds, the entire architectural effort of showing up reduced to a thumb movement, he locked his phone, set it on his desk, and let the message sit there, unanswered. While the session got planned around the shape of his silence, and the hours passed, and Wednesday became Thursday, and the study group met without him in a room that had an empty chair or didn't, he'll never know, because he never asked. But here's the part that he keeps trying to bury under the prosecution, the part that keeps clawing back up through the floorboards every time he thinks he's sealed it shut. He wanted to see what would happen. Some part of him, the part that designs these experiments, the part that runs the tests, the quiet engineer in the basement of every decision he makes about other people, wanted to know. If he didn't show up, would they come looking? If he went silent, would someone break the silence? If he removed himself from the equation, would the equation notice? He set a trap, baited with his own absence, placed it carefully and walked away and waited in the dark to see what it caught. And what it caught was nothing, which was exactly the right answer to a question that was never fair. Because here's what the prosecution doesn't mention. Here's the exhibit he keeps leaving out of the case file. They asked. They did ask. His name was in the chat with a question mark after it. Somebody typed those 7 letters and that curved little symbol and sent it into the world and waited. And when the world sent back silence, they did what people do. They assumed. They moved on. They filled the chair and shared the notes and studied for the thing they came to study for, because that's the reasonable response. That's what you do when someone doesn't answer. You don't break down the door. You don't send a search party. You don't chase someone who gave you every indication that they didn't want to be in the room. They weren't cruel, they were normal. And their normal, reasonable, completely justified reaction is the thing Michael has been carrying for 3 weeks like evidence of a crime that nobody committed. He's the prosecutor and the criminal. He's the one who filed the charges. He's the one who rigged the jury. He's the one who entered his own absence into evidence and rested his case on the fact that people believed what he showed them, which was a closed door and nothing behind it. Because that's what it is, isn't it? It's a door. It's always been a door. And he's the one standing on the inside with his hand on the lock. Not them. Him. Every muted notification, every expired invite, every message left on read until the window closed and the plans solidified without him. He did that. One by one, like bricks. Building the wall and then pressing his ear against it. Listening for footsteps that get quieter every time because people leave when you show them a wall. That's not abandonment. That's directions. He gave them directions away from him and then stood in the empty room and called it proof. Proof of what, though? Proof of what? That nobody cares? They asked. That nobody notices? They typed his name. That the world moves on without him? He told it to. The loneliness isn't something that happened to him. It's something he built. Muted chat by muted chat, ignored invite by ignored invite. A room with no doors that he constructed with his own hands and furnished with his own silence. and sits in every night, refreshing a screen that will never show him the message he wants. Because the message he wants, the "Where are you? We need you. Please come back," is a response to a version of events where he was taken, where he was stolen from the people around him by some force outside his control. But he wasn't taken. He left. Quietly, politely, one non-response at a time, he left. And then he reported himself missing and waited for someone to start looking. And the weight of that, of seeing it, finally, the whole architecture, every beam and joint and nail, is the kind of heavy that doesn't live in your body. It lives in the specific silence between knowing something and saying it out loud. He hasn't said it out loud. He's just sitting with the blueprint, the full schematic of a machine he built to prove that he's alone, running exactly as designed, producing exactly the result it was built to produce. The lecture continues. The professor advances a slide. The laptops keep clicking. And Michael needs something. Not the group chat, not the milestone, not the blank document or the uncapped pen or anything in this room. Something older. Something underneath all of this. Underneath the tests and the traps and the evidence locker full of silence he's been curating since when exactly? His mind reaches back, not to a memory, to a conversation, one that never happened, one that was supposed to happen a long time ago. In a kitchen he can almost see, on an afternoon he can almost feel, with a man who was supposed to say something and didn't, and didn't, and didn't, until the boy stopped waiting and started building doors instead. The kitchen isn't real. He knows that. He knows it the way you know you're dreaming sometimes, the awareness floating above the thing itself, watching it assemble without your permission. But his mind builds it anyway, counter by counter, cabinet by cabinet, the specific yellow of the overhead light that was always too warm, the hum of a refrigerator that needed replacing for 3 years and never got replaced, the window above the sink where the afternoon came in sideways and hit the table at an angle that made everything look like a photograph of a family that was doing fine. It's a Sunday. It feels like a Sunday. He's 16 in this version, not the real 16, not the one with acne and a geometry test and a phone that was already starting to replace every human in the room, but the 16 that was supposed to exist, the one where his father is sitting across the table from him, not reading, not checking something, not halfway into the other room in his head, sitting, present, looking at his son with the kind of deliberate attention that says, "I cleared this time for you specifically." And this version of Robert, this phantom, this architectural rendering of a man who shares DNA with the real one, but nothing else, this version opens his mouth and says the thing that was supposed to be said at some point during the 18 years Michael lived in that house, the thing that Michael has been waiting for so long that the waiting itself became a personality trait. Here's how you ask for help. That's it. That's the whole curriculum. The entire course catalog of the education he never received. Not how to be strong, not how to be independent, not how to gut it out and handle it and figure it out on your own, because that's what men do, or whatever the silence was supposed to be teaching. Just, here's how you need someone without it feeling like you lost something. Here's how you say, "I can't do this alone," without the sentence tasting like a surrender. Here's how you reach out and keep your hand open long enough for someone to take it, instead of pulling it back the second you feel the air on your palm. The phantom father sits there, patient, waiting, like a prop in a play Michael is directing from the back row of his own mind. And Michael loses it. Not out loud, not in the lecture hall, in the kitchen that doesn't exist, at the table that was never set for this conversation. He mentally comes apart at a man who can't hear him because he was never really there. He unloads everything. Every dinner where 4 people sat in 4 chairs and said nothing that cost anything. Every evening, Robert walked through the front door and went straight to his office and closed the door, not with anger, not with malice, just with the quiet efficiency of a man who had already used up his daily allocation of presents on strangers and had nothing left for the people who actually lived with him. Every single time, the lesson was delivered without a word being spoken. You handle it. You go quiet. You sit with it until it passes, or you pass. And either way, the house stays silent and the system keeps running, and nobody has to do the terrifying, humiliating, catastrophic work of saying, "I need you to stay in the room right now." He screams at the phantom. Not words, not at first, just the pressure of 4 years of building doors finally meeting the memory of the man who taught him the blueprints. You were supposed to fix this. You were supposed to be the one who sat me down before I got to campus, before I started muting group chats, before I learned how to test people. You were supposed to grab me by the shoulders and say, "This thing you're doing, this disappearing act, I know it because I invented it, and it will eat you alive, and here is how you stop." You never gave me the words, and now I'm 20 years old, and I don't know how to type, "Yeah, I'm down," into a group chat without it feeling like I'm handing someone a piece of myself I'll never get back. You never showed me that people don't leave just because you let them see you, because you never let anyone see you, because you were doing the same thing in the same house at the same table, and I learned it the way kids learn everything, by watching, by absorbing, by inheriting the architecture without ever seeing the plans. The phantom doesn't flinch. Phantoms don't. They just sit there and receive whatever you throw because they're built for exactly this. To be the target that holds still long enough for you to exhaust yourself. And then something shifts. The light in the kitchen doesn't change. The hum of the refrigerator doesn't stop. But the phantom's face does something. Not different exactly. More like it clarifies. The way a reflection clarifies when the water goes still. And when it speaks, the voice that comes out isn't Robert's. It's Michael's. His own voice. Calm. Unbearably calm. The way you sound when you've already had the argument 100 times and you're just tired of winning it. You know he couldn't teach you that because he never learned it either, right? The kitchen contracts. The yellow light flickers, or maybe Michael flinches. Same thing in a room made of thought. He was sitting at that table doing the exact same thing you're doing in the back row right now. Closed laptop, blank page. Waiting for someone to walk through a door he locked himself. He didn't have the words because nobody gave them to him either. And the man who didn't give them to him didn't have them because it goes back. It goes all the way back. An inheritance no one signed for. A blueprint passed from father to son to father to son. Not in conversations, not in lessons, but in the specific shape of a closed door and the silence on both sides of it. So who exactly are you waiting for? Michael doesn't answer. The phantom doesn't press. It just sits there with his own face at a table in a kitchen that never existed during an afternoon that was never set aside. The most patient version of himself, asking the one question that has no answer, because every answer loops back to the same place. He's waiting for his father, who was waiting for his father, who was waiting for his. A line of men standing outside locked doors with their hands in their pockets, each one waiting for the man before him to knock first. The kitchen fades, not dramatically, not like a movie, more like he just stops building it. The refrigerator hum dissolves into the projector hum. The yellow light becomes fluorescent. The table becomes a fold-out desk with a closed laptop and an uncapped pen and a phone face down on its surface. The phantom is gone. There was never anyone to argue with. Just him, on both sides of a door, knocking and refusing to open at the same time. The professor is saying something about questions. Michael registers it the way he registered the milestone announcement, distantly from behind the glass he's been sitting behind all morning. The voice comes through the speakers and dissipates somewhere above the back row, and the word questions hangs in the air for exactly as long as it takes for no one to raise a hand. The room is already moving, laptops folding shut, that specific sound, the soft click of 200 screens meeting 200 keyboards in quick succession, like a wave breaking backward. Backpacks unzipping, notebooks closing, chairs shifting against the floor, conversations starting in low murmurs that build into the full, easy noise of people who are going somewhere next, together or alone, but going. 200 people stand up, and Michael is not one of them. He's still in the back row, seat 14 of 16, the same posture he's had for, he doesn't know how long anymore. The lecture was an hour and 20 minutes. He absorbed none of it. His notebook has nothing. His pen is still uncapped. His laptop is closed, and inside it, somewhere on a hard drive that doesn't care, there is no document. The blank page he opened at 10:01 was never typed in, never saved. It doesn't exist as a file. It was a white screen that appeared and disappeared and left no evidence it was ever there. A window that opened onto nothing and closed over nothing, and the nothing is still there, perfectly preserved, taking up exactly 0 space. The room thins, the aisles clear. Someone's jacket brushes the back of his chair on their way out. They don't notice him, not because they're cruel, because he's sitting still in a room that's emptying, and people don't look at things that aren't moving. The professor packs up. The projector shuts off and the screen goes blue, then black. The laptop clicks quiet. The ambient hum of the room lowers by one frequency, then another, until what's left is the ventilation system and the fluorescent lights and the particular silence of a large room with almost no one in it. Michael is still sitting in the back row, laptop closed, phone face down, pen uncapped, notebook blank. Sitting with a question that doesn't have an answer in a room that's almost empty, in a building full of people he could reach if he opened his hands, on a campus of thousands who will never know he was here this morning, waiting for a phone call that was never coming, from a person he was supposed to become.